Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this topical and informational session on tech for social good. The current pandemic has led to a paradigm shift in the way technology is adopted. In just 1 year, the world witnessed 3 years worth of IT adoption. Today, more than ever, society and people are driving technology trends. 2020 has provided us with a soft reset. We now have to ensure that technology plays multiple roles in creating a more sustainable and better normal. We need to give shape to development models that put digital at the service of humanity. And to lay a roadmap for such a future, we have with us today business and technology leaders from companies that are bringing about social change by leveraging technology. So without any more delay, please join me in welcoming our panelists of the day in alphabetical order, Mr. Luca Schnettler, co-founder and CEO, Qumata, Mr. Jain, founder and CEO, Logically, Professor Nam-Joon, Chair Professor, School of Materials Science and Engineering, Nanyang Technological University, Singapore, and Mr. Pranav Tiwari, CTO, nurture.farm. Welcome, gentlemen. Great to have you all in this panel. I'll set the ball rolling with Luca. Luca, you claim to be building a new standard for life and health insurance underwriting. We all know technology is redefining healthcare in a major way. Is this the tipping point or the beginning of the era of healthcare on demand? You know, when customers want things at their own time, convenience, and place? And what would be the social implication of this intersection of healthcare and technology? Your thoughts on this?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question. I believe that more and more of our healthcare delivery and more of our services that we access in this regards will move into the digital and also into the home space. Of course, what we do as a company is very much focused on the insurance industry and helping insurers price risk. But nevertheless, there can be synergies drawn between the two, because actually when you go for an insurance underwriting or when you try to actually buy an insurance policy, what usually always happens is you have to get a medical exam, or you have to tell the insurer about your own medical history, whether you have any conditions and so forth. Now, whether that is for an insurance purpose or whether you want to get a checkup to see, whether you're in general health, it is a similar process. And in both areas, really, it is moving now towards a more home and patient-centered process. And I think the real game changer in this area is really the question about data availability, because ultimately, all of these processes can be factored into a digital process if enough data about the individual is readily available. And I think we've been really going through a paradigm shift in the last couple of years. When we started 4 or 5 years ago, right, there was not even a think about doing a risk assessment via, your mobile data. And that's probably because mobile devices and even wearables, especially in developing market, were not as prevalent. Whereas if you look now, the wearable 5 years ago, first of all, had not that massive an uptake. And second of all, didn't have that much accuracy and quality and variable scope. Whereas now I just looked at the new Apple Watch, and all the stuff that it has, including blood oxygen levels, all of that is only after 5, 6 years, right? And think about where we're going to be in 6, 7 years. Potentially we're going to have devices that can measure many, many more variables about your health. And this will then lead to more and more of the services that usually had to go to your doctor's office, had to talk to an underwriter, be really in your hands and in your own digital ecosystem that you can then share. But it's all about data, in my opinion.
Sure, definitely. Luca, like you said, today's mobile device packs more compute than the first Apollo mission. So definitely technology is really advancing. Wonderful. Let me come to Professor Cho now. Professor Cho, NTU has a 2025 strategic plan that aims at translating inventions and creativity into outcomes that enhance economic benefits and quality of life. How are you maximizing IT? How are you maximizing leveraging technology to achieve this goal?
Yeah, thank you very much for the great question. NTU, as a young university, but it's a fast-growing university, has a great initiative in data mining, machine learning, and AI, in the conjunction with the various of social and fundamental science, besides engineering and business. Even engineering business, we have all those knowledge coming together. For example, I developed drug, and we're using AI-based data mining system or artificial intelligence to actually fast selecting the drug, for example. And then those new computational tools will play a key role in the developing various technology and also fundamental knowledges by combining and optimizing all the data processing. So we are very excited about this recent development and then future development.
Wonderful. Wonderful, Professor Cho. Coming to Pranav now. Pranav, the importance of agriculture in a country like India cannot be underestimated. However, farmers who provide food security for the world are left to deal with risks and uncertainty on their own. As a startup in the agriculture space, how can technology help in circumventing these risks for farmers?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I think we all know that India is a very heavily, India as a country is very heavily dependent on agriculture. A very large number of Indians, either directly or indirectly, are employed by the agriculture sector. But what you know is that over the years, farming has become progressively more and more difficult. Part of this is because of fragmentation of farms. The average size of a farm in India, the average farm holding is only about 3 acres, which is extremely minuscule. And when the farms become so small, it becomes really difficult to apply science and technology at scale. A small farmer has very little access to mechanization. He has very little access to the right kind of information and advisory that is necessary to be able to get the right kind of yield and output from the farm. So all of these challenges have compounded each other, and the current state is that as a livelihood, farming in India is under threat. A small farmer finds it really difficult to make their ends meet, and as a result of that, they have almost no ability to be able to take risk in terms of changing their crops. They have no ability to be able to hold on to their produce to get a good price. And almost all of these challenges are related to the progressive decline in farm sizes. Now, in the end, if you want to start thinking about how you will address some of these problems, you need to start being able to apply knowledge, science, in a way that can reach these farms. An industrial farm of 2,000 or 20,000 acres can easily access advice from an agronomist. But how do you take the same kind of advisory and information to a farm which is only 3 acres? And I believe this is where technology can play a substantial role. Technology can start, in fact, at nurture.farm, what we have done is we've built a fairly large-scale shared economy platform, similar to what you see done by Ubers and Olas of the world in mobility space or many other companies in the other types of logistics space, where this kind of a platform starts to deliver these services to farmers in a shared economy model. The same machine that a single farmer cannot afford can be very cost effectively utilized by an entire village or possibly multiple villages in a region. So we have started working on and creating this platform, started digitizing farmlands in India, and started to deliver many of these services. So technology can bring down costs. It can bring access to such mechanization and other conveniences for farming. It can again start to de-risk the farmer's business by bringing the right data to establish the right kind of risks and create insurance models. A farmer should be able to insure his farm against, let's say, a risk of frost or risk of complete lack of rain for 3 weeks during germination. A lot of this, again, can come down from being able to appropriately devise technology specifically for these kinds of questions.
Sure. Wonderful, Pranav. So technology is a big leveler, from 3 acres to 3,000 acres. It can democratize benefits for everybody, right? Great. Coming to Lyric now. Lyric logically is a social enterprise specializing in the use of artificial intelligence to improve how we consume and interact with information online. While the internet is a godsend for information, there are no two ways about it. Its nature means that misinformation reaches more people faster than ever before. How do you look at this double-edged sword from a societal prism?
It's really challenging. Maybe around 8 to 10 years ago, when there were so many events happening in the world. There was the Arab Spring, etc., and people were championing social media and online search as a way of as the champions of democracy. And these are going to be the tools that are finally going to spread democracy into every country in the world. And kind of 5 years later, we're seeing the huge risks that are posed by social media and by search and by various online experiences that people go through. So it's really a trade-off between all of this huge and economic and social value that is being created by the internet and by really quick and efficient access to information, access to other people, to communities. But there are risks involved. There's so many harms that are online harms that are caused as a result of online content and online experiences. And even worse, what we've started to see in recent years is these harms aren't just limited to the online sphere. They've started moving into the real world, from what happened at Capitol Hill in America at the start of the year to 5G towers being burnt across Europe last year, to so many incidents that happened in India, from kind of micro level events a few years ago involving lynchings to quite macro level radicalization, where online content and online activity plays a huge role. So I think it's a complex area where we need both technical challenges and some policy and regulatory solutions. And work is being done across a number of countries on the policy side, and a number of technology platforms are trying to roll out solutions. Kind of some have the approach of, hey, let's just throw 20,000 people at this problem and let's see if it fixes it. Some are being more innovative in their use of technology and AI, and that's kind of where we fit in as well, kind of helping both governments as well as platforms identify where online content and online activity could lead to online harm or real world harm, and finding ways in which we can respond to it that are effective but proportionate. So I think it's not just us, but the whole space is making great progress, considering that this has only been to people's attention for the last 3 or 4 years. But there's a long way to go, in particular in terms of identifying what's effective. Because I think we made a lot of progress in detecting, hey, this is harmful and this isn't harmful, but we haven't made enough progress in figuring out how effective is taking down a piece of content, how effective it is taking down an account. So a lot more progress needs to be made on that side of things.
Sure. So it's definitely work in progress. Great. Coming back to Luca now. Luca, like you said, data is at the heart of transformation of the healthcare vertical. But leveraging data in healthcare throws up challenges of privacy. This privacy utility trade-off becomes even more critical when data from multiple sources is integrated, potentially leading to unintended consequences or leaks. How do you look at this challenge, and how can it be mitigated? Because if we are looking at extending healthcare to all, making it all inclusive, the issue of privacy has to be addressed.
Absolutely. I mean, I can only agree with the fact that data privacy is of utmost importance. I think it's a very interesting question, a very interesting problem to solve, because on one side, companies need to follow strict data privacy rules that protect customers. That is absolutely clear. But we should also not go too far in hindering innovation because of a data privacy concern. And I think from that perspective, we need to find really the good middle ground. Now, I don't have the answer of exactly what that middle ground looks like. And I think we're currently finding that out on different levels. Specifically on a geopolitical area, I think different regions think about, different countries think about it differently. Now, if you ask for my personal opinion, I probably tend to be more towards the stricter data privacy side of things. I personally believe that data is extremely important, but at least for what we do, we don't have to have anonymized data. Now, again, I'm not an expert in terms of thinking about every single area where data privacy could have an issue, but at least for the limited space that I'm in terms of using data to predict for mortality and morbidity risk, right? One of the things that we've decided to do is, especially because obviously insurance is not a game of correctly predicting an individual, but actually correctly predicting a group of people, so that overall, your claim ratio compared to the overall population isn't too high. And from that perspective, one of the solutions that we found is to be very, very clear in regards to having non-PII, non-personal identifiable information I think that's a core thing that can solve a lot, because if you don't have that personal information, then there's less risk involved with it. Of course, again, it's not as easy as PII or non-PII. We have a lot of discussion with our customers about what is qualified as PII. So for example, if you have a heart rate information, right, could you technically, together with a, with an age or exact date of birth, link that back to a person? I think there's a lot of discussions about how to find the perfect solution here. But I think we're moving in the right direction. But I think we shouldn't be led by a point of like data is bad. I think that is a very important point to push back against. I think data can do a lot of good. I think what the core issue is that data isn't used in the wrong way. And for that, a very easy way to safeguard it is to take personally identifiable information out, and also obviously adhere very strictly to local regulations where, for example, data is not allowed to leave the country. And one last thing on this, which I also find very important, is I would encourage governments specifically to try to be very clear and very specific around what the rules around data privacy is. I think a lot of governments are doing a very good job here. I think GDPR in Europe has been really helpful. And not only because it regulates very strictly what companies can do, but actually, and I have this belief very strongly, I think it also gives consumers a lot of confidence, because when consumers are afraid what happens with their data, we're not very clear, if I give this data to the insurer, or if I give it to this company Qumata, what happens to my data? Is it going to get used in bad ways against me? But if there's a very strict and a very clearly communicated data privacy, regime, I guess, then consumers will have a very clear understanding of what happens to their data, and they develop a very big sense of trust, and that will allow them to share the data, and that will allow us to reap the benefits of anonymized data. So that's my 2 cents on it, but there's many opinions, and I think we're finding our way in that space still.
Definitely, Luca. So the government has to really play a very proactive role here. Great. I'll come to Professor Cho again. Professor, you have come up with something very innovative, which just shows that if someone is really, hell-bent on marrying sustainability with technology, it is definitely possible. Can you throw some more light on how you are using natural pollen grains in 3D printing, and how would it benefit sustainability and the society at large?
Yeah, thank you very much. It's an excellent question. And then, we need to really think about sustainability. A lot of people use a term right now, or terminology, ESG, which is environmental, social, and governance. And then people also talk about sustainability. But this have to be coming from the definition of sustainability. People just think about and talk about it. Please take a look at your environment right now, your room, your house, and your computer. What kind of material you guys are using? Which is plastic. And then you guys all know that we should not use the plastic. And then we automatically think, hey, we are recycling plastic. Is this the case? Which is not the case. Our economy in overall, in the big picture, is a linear way we grow. Basically, we use it, we make it, and then we waste it. That's it. And then next terminology came is a circular economy, which is, okay, let's using we recycle some of the waste, which is we are losing. So the pollen is actually one of the examples. It's a new way of looking at the material. Pollen, as you know, what do you think about pollen? Pollen is just waste or dust, and people think it's just some of the material. People want to avoid it. And then we basically have an innovation or using the sustainable processing, using pollen to make various of different type of material, useful material, that is including microgel, paper, sponge, and also plastic-like material. We can actually replace plastic. So, and in here, microgel is we can actually using it for the substitution of ink. So basically, in the one of the demonstration we did is use 3D printing, use pollen-based microgel ink to print out the material. That is one of the demonstrations. So in here, the very important thing is how do you actually looking at the material and we conserve the sustainable environment, which is a very, very important topic. And then I believe this is going to be the next, way of you looking at how we can actually save the life for 3D printing, because additive manufacturing, this is a new emerging technology. We can also use them as the building block for the various sort of 3D printing material in any dimension. So, there's a lot of opportunity and a new way of thinking about how we can utilize engineering technology to for developing sustainable world.
Great work there, Professor Cho. We really didn't know that Poland could find so many applications. So just wonderful. Coming back to Pranav. Pranav, talking about agriculture, it's really close to my heart. Beyond precision agricultural practices that reduce cost and increase yield, farmers need access to genuine retail inputs for soil nutrition, seed and crop protection, as well as trade markets that pay the right price for the quality that they produce, which I feel is really critical, because everything comes to naught if the farmer doesn't make a healthy profit. Can technology play a role in all these areas? If yes, how?
Certainly, I think that's a really good question. And if you play that question specifically for small farmers, the problem gets even more exacerbated. A large industrial farm has access to has a good buying power. It also has access to final trade platforms where they can sell their produce. But a small farmer is always left to essentially no help at all when it comes to getting information, inputs for his farm, nor when it comes to being able to sell the output coming out of the farms. Technology can play a role in all of these aspects. I mean, some of the things that this technology does very well, we all know, is breaking information barriers, being able to make help with decision making. If technology is able to bring the ability to do soil testing and decision making based on that soil test results, to be able to decide what kind of nutrients are missing in the soil, this is something that that can substantially change the game for the farmers, and it can reduce all the bad effects that come from over fertilization and over nitrogen use in the soil. Technology can help the farmers with early pest detection, early pest prediction that can prevent crop loss very, very effectively. Digital technology especially has shown that it can make marketplaces very efficient. It can make supply chains extremely efficient. And on both, all the input distribution of input products like crop protection, seeds, fertilizers to the farmers, it can again bring down the costs and the quality of produce that even the quality of inputs that the farmers have access to. On the output side, especially for small farmers, the problem is even more severe. The value addition that happens to the crop as it leaves the farm gate till it finds the consumer's plate is immense, and a lot of that gets lost away from the farmer. The farmer typically sells something for a price of X, and by the time it reaches a consumer like you and me, we are paying 10X that price. Why should the farmer be losing all that value? Technology can again start connecting the producers and consumers much more efficiently, bring the right kind of supply chains there, and bring traceability. I think that's another really important element of if through technology I'm able to find what has happened to the food that's lying in my plate today, I would be willing to pay the right premium for the right quality products. In the absence of this information reaching the consumers, there is no way to reward the farmers for good practices. There's no way to reward the farmers for producing high quality produce other than what can be observed at the table. So in each of these aspects, input marketplaces, output trade marketplaces, being able to take care of the crops through mechanization, pest control, and so on, there is a ton of opportunity for technology to intervene and improve the lives of our farmers.
Great, Pranav, thanks for that very comprehensive answer. Coming back to Lyric and talking again about internet and information. The internet has made health information faster, easier, and more available than ever. However, as the COVID-19 crisis has demonstrated, this comes at the cost of large-scale health misinformation problems, which can result in poor outcomes for patients and society at large. And I was reading a recent report claiming that India produced the largest amount of social media misinformation on COVID due to the country's higher internet penetration rate, increasing social media consumption, and users' lack of internet literacy. How have you leveraged technology to fight damaging misinformation and disinformation for healthcare over the past year and a half since the pandemic started?
Absolutely, this is an area that's really close to my heart. It's part of Logically's genesis story, and this was a few years ago. My grandma, she was 85, 86 at the time, and she lived in India, and she, even though she was 85 at that age, she still used WhatsApp. And she got this tirade of messages at that time saying, hey, drink this special green juice, give up your cancer meds, and you'll live longer, or you'll have a painless death, etc., etc. Really like vile, disgusting stuff. And she obviously fell for it, and we lost her a lot earlier than we ought to have. So from that kind of micro level incidents that are clearly based in fraud to like larger scale kind of belief systems that exist across India and also across the world, kind of health misinformation really has the power to kind of change lives and kind of cause a disruption at that kind of extreme level that we don't really see in, say, financial disinformation or political disinformation. So when it comes to health misinformation, over the last year and a half, we've kind of ensured our automation has been resilient to COVID rumors and all of the conspiracies that we saw 18 months or so ago around 5G and COVID and the various origin stories of COVID that different nation state actors were puppeting. And so our models and our systems ended up being very resilient to those rumors. And thankfully at that time, our partners at Google helped us out a lot because we had to 10x the scale of information that we were consuming on a daily basis, just because how much of an outlier event COVID was. But thanks to them, we were able to upscale without having to scale our costs by 10x. But more in terms of the impact side of what we were able to achieve, we were then able to put this technology in the hands of multiple governments and multiple platforms so that they could make informed decisions around both kind of what to do when certain communities believing in really extreme information when it comes to COVID or the vaccines even, like some claiming that you'd be surprised by which narratives around the vaccines is leading to most hesitancy. It's not that, hey, the vaccine's only taken a year to build. That's like a fraction of the hesitancy. Most of the hesitancy is coming from because people think chips are being put into people's bodies because through the vaccine or because Bill Gates is funding them. It's the ridiculous things that are causing more hesitancy than the more plausible things that you could give people the benefit of the doubt over. So those are the things that we've focused on ensuring that we identify and come up with ways of tackling. But more broadly, in addition to the work we've done with governments, we've worked quite closely with Facebook in India to launch our media literacy program. So this is ways in which we've found different communities in India, such as communities with high disability rates, kind of pregnant mothers, etc., all of whom have different concerns around the COVID vaccines, and put our technology as well as kind of our training specialists in their hands to let them know how they can be evangelists in their own communities to help ensure that we can help overcome all of the hesitancy that we're seeing. And also in June, we ended up launching Logically Health. So this is now our initiative to specifically work with public health bodies, as well as with pharmaceutical companies and hospitals. And I think we'll be announcing a few enterprises that we're working with shortly. But the aim there is very much similar, but outside of the COVID domain, because this isn't a COVID only problem. People have all kinds of misbeliefs around side effects of medicines. Also in India, there's a particularly prevalent fraudulent problem of organ trade that needs to be combated. And all of these entities, be it hospital, public health bodies, and pharmaceutical companies, they all end up being wrapped up in these risk events. So we're through Logically Health working with them to help de-risk the entire health supply chain. We're ambitious around what we can do in the health domain, and in addition to everything else we're doing in the general safety domain.
We look forward to the announcements from Logically Lyric. Meanwhile, Luca, which technologies do you think will play a crucial role in meeting the goals of delivering better and cost-effective healthcare for all? What should technology leaders and healthcare experts need to do to meet these goals?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question. I mean, my answer to them would be to try to integrate as much as possible into the existing devices that have already found large-scale traction within populations. So I think, people will be surprised about the sort of, I call it sci-fi kind of like crazy stuff that already exists out there, just at a ridiculously high price, right? So the first challenge is obviously bringing that price down and making it more available. And a good example is, you already have devices that can measure your, your blood sugar levels, from a wearable type, device. But then they're not at a price point that are really mass market consumer facing. But so this is the first challenge, bringing down the price. But second, from existing solutions that already exist. But second of all, I would really encourage all hardware technology leaders to really try to think about how to integrate it within existing devices that have found those large scale tractions. So for example, right, look at your smartphone. A lot is already, smartphone penetration is quite immense. I mean, even in some developing countries, you're having like double-digit percentage of populations that have access to that. And so instead of trying to, I guess, build new devices that can, go around, I think what would be really interesting would be to think about what type of software or what type of solutions can you integrate into existing technologies that already have that widespread take up, and make them widely available rather than having additional devices to be purchased on top. Of course, that is easier said than done, because a lot of these technologies require features that maybe your iPhone or your Xiaomi or so forth phone does not have. But I think people will be surprised about how much, even just a smartphone. You mentioned the Apollo versus our current smartphone, example. I think people will be surprised how much one can already do with even a basic, not even an iPhone, a basic level smartphone. And yeah, my encouragement would really to build as much of the future developments in that. And yeah, I hope that happens.
Professor Cho, your findings also has ramifications for drug delivery platforms. How can drug delivery and other biomedical applications be transformed through the use of pollen microgels? Can you talk a little bit more about that, please?
Yeah, thank you very much. So, continuation of talking about sustainable material. So, this is a single material derived from, but you can also using it for different form of a material. For example, the single grain of pollen itself naturally have the function of deliver generic material inside to outside. That's why you can have an offspring of a flower, plant, and so on. So we basically use exact same natural mimetic behavior using engineering way. That's number one. And then further to say, we can also insert drug, like, for example, right now, the people crazy about vaccine because it's mRNA technology, people using it for the RNP, which is lipid nanoparticle. We can also using it for the pollen. And you can use it because you can actually deliver not only IV, but you can actually do it with the oral delivery, nasal delivery, what naturally you're taking pollen with, right? So, there is a lot of innovation can be happen, but in here, the most important thing is whether this material is useful as well as sustainable or not. Because we need to really, take the lesson from the reusing plastic material or polymer material, which is a fantastic material. That's why we're using it everyday life, your computer, your headphone set, your even clothes with the polymer, everywhere. But in return, they give you the convenience, but in return, right now, people realizing that the side effect of using such a material. So, whole platform we try to build on, we need to really think about from beginning to and the consequence. For example, like people talking about the data right now, people talking about the IT development, convenience of internet, social media, but same time, everybody discuss about there is a side effect because we never really think about such a side effect, the cyberbullying, cyber pandemic. Right now, because technology development, we actually can prevent this epidemic pandemic. But same time, because of this technology development, there is a side effect. So what core my research is about is I core or I turn cross economy so that we are raising pioneer, but those pioneers need to think about what is the consequence of this technology development, which is very important. So, the pollen example is a humble pollen. People think it's waste, but we using very traditional technology processing and innovation, not the very fancy one, traditional. The meaning is affordable technology to actually innovate the system. That's what we are trying to do. And then I'm hoping that this is going to be the example platform so that people actually see they can apply to the different fields. That is including IT, AI, and other fields.
Wonderful. Very well said, Professor. Pranav, I strongly believe that agriculture and farmers will thrive only if every stakeholder in the ecosystem is benefited. Retailers should be able to grow their businesses through customer connectivity. Traders, processors, and buyers should have complete clarity on their purchases via scientific methods that measure produce quality and trace sustainable practices. How can IT help in creating an ecosystem that doesn't merely focus on profit, but works for the benefit of everyone, all stakeholders in the agriculture ecosystem?
Yeah, I think that's really important. And one of the biggest value technology and IT brings is in breaking the information barriers. And a lot of the answer to the questions you're asking lies in there. Through technology, you can indeed grow the pie itself, and through that larger pie, there is enough value that can be created for every stakeholder in the ecosystem. I'll take one simple example. If you look at a crop like groundnut, India is the second largest producer of groundnut with very large amount of area under groundnut cultivation. But there are many other countries which have 4x the productivity of Indian farmers. That tells you how much is the headroom available for the same land to be utilized in a different way, grow the value, grow the pie for all of the players who are participating in that ecosystem and generate more value for them. Be it the retailers who are selling to these farmers themselves, and eventually the quality produce that makes it to the consumers. Now, we believe that retailers have a very important role to play in this ecosystem, especially for small farmers. They are not only providing the last mile product distribution to farmers, they play a role which is not played by retailers in most other traditional businesses. Small farmers, their only source of working capital credit is from the retailers. So when a farmer goes to buy seeds, he usually cannot pay in cash upfront. He pays him after the harvest. So for these 3 months, the retailer is his creditor. The retailer is the person who provides him the information. So it's really critical that he strengthen the hands of this retailer. What we've been doing through our retail platform is we are essentially turning the retailer into, so we've created a suite of products for the retailers so that they can buy products from the manufacturers directly through a very efficient marketplace. And at the same time, use the tools provided to him to manage the farmer relationships, provide them the right level of information, provide them with all the other tools available to businesses in terms of reaching out to their customers and so on. If you look at the output side, today a small farmer essentially has only one option left when he harvests his crop. He puts all the produce, the 4, 5, 6 tons of produce in one tractor or a truck, takes it to the market, and he's forced to sell it at whatever price that market offers, because he doesn't have the opportunity to take the produce back to his home and bring it for a better price another day. This puts him in a very severe disadvantage. I believe making this market efficient for the farmer is extremely critical. In terms of what you said, in terms of creating benefit for everybody in the ecosystem, this is a great opportunity. Bringing the right kind of warehouses, being able to bring modern types of trades in terms of dematerializing the commodities and being able to enable the farmers to be able to participate in that kind of marketplace. So these efficient marketplaces, modern and the trade type of exchanges that exist in most other ecosystems, bringing them to agriculture, I think there is an immense opportunity in terms of trying to apply some solutions that have worked in many other ecosystems specifically to agriculture, and this will create value for every player in that. So the processors, the farmers, and the consumers.
Great, Pranav. Lyric, let's talk politics now. Indian elections, as you know, it's a mammoth exercise, but despite all efforts, it is replete with misinformation. With some Indian states heading into elections soon, what should be done to mitigate this challenge?
Yes, the world's largest democracy always has challenges with elections. So I think one big learning, probably from our friends over in America, would be to ensure that there's sufficient confidence in the election system. Because I think the worst thing that can happen is people not believing in the election result. And the way to do that is twofold. It's ensuring election security and integrity, and also then ensuring that the electorate trusts the entire process that's being followed, and that due process is being followed, and that there's no corruption and nothing untoward that's being done. So I think that there's this construct of the MCC, the Model Code of Conduct that the ETCIO implements during election season, and there's kind of 4 or 5 things that it prohibits. So there's already the legal framework for running safe and well-regulated elections in India, and I think it just needs to be taken into the digital world. So the ETCIO already does monitor social media and WhatsApp and all of these different channels for any misinformation, and particular misinformation that isn't partisan. So we didn't really care here about party political agendas being right or wrong. What we really care about is outright disinformation that's discouraging people to vote, or telling people, hey, your election date has been moved from this polling booth to that polling booth on a different date from Wednesday to Thursday or whatever. So that's the kind of explicit disinformation and illegal activity that we need to crack down on. But in addition to that, India being a democracy, we do have some noisy neighbors, if I can call it that. And in previous work that we've done with various other state election bodies, we've noted them to be significant participants in the election conversation, particularly these narratives around electoral fraud. They've amplified them using bots, and we need to be vigilant in combating those. So I think it's time for us to, again, adopt more technology, and it looks like we have a very sound legal and regulatory framework to apply that technology. And from our point of view, we're excited to be looking forward to doing that, at least in some of the states. So I think it's a model that's worked well for us across countries. In India, we worked in Maharashtra a couple of years ago, and that was really our first proper election case study. And we worked in a battleground state as well as with the federal government in the US last year. And thankfully, that battleground state was one of the less noisy ones. And it's a model that we were reasonably confident in, ensuring that people have transparency of the process, and any claims that they're making are taken seriously. But anything that has no evidence behind it, we're being sure to clamp down on it as swiftly as we can. Sure.
Wonderful. So, gentlemen, we are coming to the end of this session. So one final round of questions to all of you. I'll start with Luca. Luca, how is Qumata leveraging technology to redefine healthcare? What are your future plans with respect to technology and healthcare?
Absolutely. I think for us, it always comes down, again, to data. I think what we want to, continue and grow to be recognized is to be the leading provider in taking data to not diagnose, but judge risk, because risk is ultimately all what it comes down to, starting off of insurance, but potentially in other areas of specifically healthcare in the future. So yeah, I think one message that I really like to take away, or have all the audience take away, is that data holds a lot of power. It can be used in bad ways, and we need to try to mitigate that. We talked about data security before. I think that's a really core piece that we can use to mitigate any nefarious actors or any bad intenders, so to speak, to use data for bad outcomes. However, we do also have to realize that power that data holds can also have a very positive impact. I think we should be more optimistic about that impact that data can have, in many areas. I mean, I'm fascinated by the work, for example, that my fellow panelist from Logically is talking about in terms of how to fight against misinformation. And I think data plays a big role into that. But also in other areas like healthcare, again, data can add a lot of value. Imagine if maybe in a couple of years, you share your data and you straight away know exactly what's wrong with you. And not only that, but you can have very individualized, personalized prevention programs to help you become healthier and help you live the best life that you can. So yeah, data is powerful. Let's use it for the right reasons. Let's build the right barriers around it so that it can only be used for the right reasons, but let's also not be scared to use data, because I think we'll miss out on a big opportunity to improve the world. Thank you.
So with great data comes great responsibility, right, Luca? Great.
Absolutely.
Pranav, how and which technologies will you be leveraging going forward to create a sustainable and resilient agriculture ecosystem in the country?
I think what needs to be done for agriculture is to bring a lot of technologies together. That to me will be the biggest value that we can create together. Technologies ranging from mechanization, scientific knowledge about agriculture and agronomy, AI and data-based decision making. Each of these needs to come together and needs to start adding value to the farmers. That is what will change the outcomes for the farmers. Agronomy and agronomic advice needs to be delivered at scale. It needs to be assisted through things like remote sensing and predictive analysis of what's going on in the pest threats and so on. And all this eventually has to be made cost effective for the farmers. And our view is that you can make them cost effective if you are able to scale each of these solutions through a shared economy and efficient marketplaces. I think the transformation that these technologies can bring to agriculture can be quite making technology accessible to farmers at a cost-effective price point, I believe, is what will transform the agriculture ecosystem. I'll take one very simple example of something that we've started doing at scale as recently as last 2 weeks. All of us are aware of all the stubble burning that happens in India in the north. Yeah. A major problem for environment as well as for the agricultural ecosystem, because it kind of destroys the topsoil quite badly. So, and there are solutions available for that. There are solutions which basically help accelerate the composting process of the stubble. And we have undertaken about 500,000 acres of farmland where we are delivering that solution at scale through the machines that we use for our shared economy based spraying systems. So with this, we will be able to eliminate about 1/10 of all of crop burning that happens in the states of Haryana and Punjab this year. And we expect to scale this going forward. This is only possible because there is the scientific advancements that produces these enzymes that help accelerate the composting process. Then effective and efficient, cost-effective and efficient delivery systems through our machines in a shared economy model. And then finally being able to advise the farmers with the right kind of agronomy knowledge that this leads to carbon accretion into their soil, which makes the soil healthy as well. So all of that has to come together for solving a problem at that scale.
Just keeping my fingers crossed that your initiative works and we have a cleaner Delhi this winter. Great. Professor Cho, Which other projects are you working on that leverage or hinge on IT? And once completed, what social impact will these have?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So right now I'm working under this pollen-based material, which as one of the material example for the sustainable world. That is basically, I have a very clear objective and a clear mission, which is very simply replace plastic. There is a lot of material actually is polymer origin, and that is what we call this plastic. So this is catchphrase for the using it using this material innovation, and then we believe, or people believe that there is a lot of waste, and then basically my demonstration is we can actually convert very simple traditional processing. Then we can actually using this waste to the very useful material. So once this is a success, which we are in the almost like beyond the halfway, and then success, and then we're gonna have a product coming out, not the prototype, product coming out. Once we have that in a realization, then a lot of people, I believe, the industry focusing on, hey, look back as the waste material. And they are creating the value addition for that. I believe this is the very exciting area, and the exciting potential feature is there. So I'm going to using this pollen as the one of the example, and then next we are planning to do the next one is the insect. Basically, we pull out the protein source or the lipid source from the insect, which is the there is no essentially energy is necessary in order to grow such a protein. So this is a few of the area I'm just tackling, and they're very exciting about this progress.
All the best for your future endeavors, Professor.
Okay, thank you very much.
Great. Lyric, final comments from you. What are Logically's future plans going forward? Which technologies and how would you be maximizing?
Well, our plans, we've got a lot of growing to do. We do a lot of powerful work with 3 democracies around the world and with numerous state governments in India. But there's 29 plus states in India and a huge central government. So there's a lot of work to do with government, a lot of work to do with platforms. We work with Facebook right now in India, but there's so many new and emerging platforms like Q and Chingari, and we'd love to work with those kind of entities as well, and expand kind of the focus beyond general harms and go into these specialist domains like health. But on the technology side, we're really excited about 2 things. First, probably our work in computer vision and moving beyond analyzing content that's kind of just text, but also understanding when images, videos, and memes in particular can be misinformative, disinformative, have propaganda in them or hate in them. That's an area of work we're really excited about. And also finding ways in which we can simulate what the most effective countermeasures could be. So how do you simulate communities on social media so that you know what the predicted impact would be if we introduced a fact check or if we introduced some kind of countermeasure within that environment? And in the context of India, we're really excited to be working with our partners, our research partners at IIIT Delhi and Punjab CSRC. So looking forward to deepening those relationships there as well.
Wonderful. We've had a great discussion, gentlemen, but that's all we have time for. To sum up the conversation, like I said, people in society are more than ever the drivers of technology trends. Disruptive technology can lift up communities around the world, and as it becomes more useful, pervasive, and robust, we must leverage it to help solve the world's major social issues. With this, we come to the end of this session. Thanks, panelists, for sharing those wonderful insights, and thanks, attendees, for sparing time for this session. Thanks once again. Everybody, keep watching the Economic Times Global Town Hall. Thank you.